Hey guys! So today we are going to answer a subscriber question. And the question in question is, Frederick, should we use frameworks since they seem to be so limiting? So let's get into it. Now, in this specific question, as you could probably guess, has to do with frameworks such as React, Angular, Vue, front-end related things. But I think that I think this is going to be true for most frameworks, and I would even go one further and say it's probably true for most tools just in general. So the way that I think about frameworks overall is that every tool that is developed has to do one fundamental thing, and that is to make an assumption about the most important thing that you need to understand in order for you to actually reap the benefits of a tool without hitting some type of wall or some type of limitation. And you don't really want to be there, because it's very often that you get into a situation where you simply either can't solve the problem, or even worse, which is to hack it, where you need to find a way to kind of go around it. And that specific thing is the use case. And that's exactly what most of these frameworks are made for. People realize, like, that's usually how it starts, guys. You usually start with a platform that is very open, where you can do basically anything. I mean, at the very bare bones of it all, it's going to be just the programming language itself. And then you work and you keep on building things, and you start repeating these patterns, and then somebody sits down and says that, hey, we're doing this exact thing over and over and over. Let's make a generic solution to this specific problem so that people who have this problem can actually use it and be more productive, if you will. And that's the core idea of just any library development or framework development and so forth. And the problem isn't that, because if you really think about it, if you truly have the use case which fits the tool that you want to use, you should never really have a cost-benefit analysis, or you shouldn't really get into a position where you feel that you made the wrong choice. Because if you made an informed choice, I mean, this is easier said than done, of course, but if you do actually make an informed decision, you shouldn't be there. Think about one of my favorite analogies. I mean, it's not as true as it used to be, but back in the day, you had this discussion with Java and C#, for example, where a lot of people would emphasize Java's flexibility. It's possible to run on any platform, while Microsoft products usually just run on their hardware and not their hardware, but their operating system. So you actually have to kind of opt in to all of their stuff in order to use something like C#. That used to be the case. And some people will argue that, well, then why would I use C#? Because, you get all these benefits from Java. Now, the false assumption here is that there are no other benefits to using something like C#. I mean, there's tons of benefits to using that language. And this one limitation, that you can't be as flexible with the platform, that's something that, if you really think about it, yes, it is true that if you do actually have an ecosystem of different platforms that you need to run your system on, and you really need that flexibility, then you should probably go with Java. It used to be that way anyway. But what if you don't? What if it doesn't matter? What if you already are working on a Windows machine, you're already running all your system in Azure Cloud or whatever, and you're already actually opted into, the Microsoft ecosystem? Does it then ask yourself, does it really matter that I don't have as much freedom as I would have had with, say, Java? And this is it's the same type of deal for JavaScript, for example, where you can actually reverse it and say that, take jQuery. I mean, there's tons of projects that go really, really poorly because they try to make an SPA, or like a single page application, just using either vanilla JavaScript or jQuery. And the problem there isn't the freedom, because you have basically maximum freedom. jQuery is a very thin wrapper on top of basically just the native APIs of the browser. There, the problem is that you don't have the structure that is required in order to scale the project to be really, really large. And that's the benefit you get from these SPA frameworks just in general. It doesn't matter which one you pick. At least you get the structure to actually produce consistent results. And you get that at the limitation, or at the cost of, a few things, which is, as I said, things that may not really matter all that much to you. And then the ball kind of comes back to you if we want to circle back to the answer of this question. Should we use a framework? Well, yes, if your use case is a good fit for that tool. That's the one thing you should always remember, guys. For all the hype trains, for all of the stuff that's going on the internet, basically, you can just kind of... I know this is hard. I mean, for the seniors, hopefully this is fairly easy to do because you've been around for long enough that you know that trends come and go, and you know what is most likely here to stay and what's not going to stay, and you know what's a good bet and what's a bad bet. For juniors or for complete beginners, it's much harder. But that's the thing that you should go for, guys. You shouldn't just buy into things without really asking the biggest question you can possibly ask whenever you pick a tool. And that question is, does this tool fit my specific use case? Because if it does, you shouldn't get into, as I said, this position where you get limited by your tool. Because if your tool is limiting you, then it's probably not the right tool for the job. So what I want you to take away from this, guys, is that using a framework, there's tons of benefits to using a framework, and you should absolutely, especially in front end, you should absolutely consider using a framework. But what drives whether or not you should use one is the use case. Now, I'm going to be honest, most professional grade projects require a framework, and some of them don't. And the trick is to know when to do what. That's the whole secret to getting the maximum benefit from your framework without it causing you a bunch of issues. Have a great day.